So, Heaven's Feel Part 3.
Yeah, that was...
Worth the wait.
Yeah.
It was over a year since Part 2 came out, and of course it got bumped back due to COVID, but, you know, we finally got to watch Heaven's Feel Part 3, went to see it on Wednesday, and it was awesome. Did not disappoint the slightest.
They definitely, I'm going to go ahead and jump the gun a little bit here, but they definitely topped Saber-Alter versus Hercules for me.
Yeah. Full disclaimer, there are going to be spoilers here.
Yes.
We're not going to go play-by-play because I'm saving that one for later. But we're going to give a brief summary of what's been going on so far, how this is different, and just roll with it from there. So, this is the third Fate route of the original Fate Stay Night visual novel. You had the Fate Stay Night route, which became its own anime, Unlimited Bladeverse, which was adapted twice, and now this is the third and final route, which finally got an animated movie adaptation in a trilogy, and this was the ending of it all. And basically, boss battles.
Yeah.
Boss battles.
Lots and lots of boss battles.
That was well-paced, actually, I think.
Yeah.
I was kind of expecting it to be just shotgunning back to back to back, but there was a decent amount of pacing.
Yeah, it was... They had a flux with it. It was high point, a reasonable lull, high point, reasonable lull.
Yeah, for lore dumps and a little more exposition that we didn't get in the first two. Now, the first two, there were, like, 3 pretty impressive fight scenes collectively, I think.
Yeah.
That's in between both films. But there's also a whole lot of character exposition and backstory in the first two. Sakura goes full dark mode, kills Shinji at the end of Part 2, which, you know, Part 3 opens up with us looking at Shinji's corpse, and I'm like, well, that's a good way to start off the movie. Shinji dead. So, Part 3 opens up, and then we don't really have much more character backstory here, except for Zoken Mato, which no one cares about him. But we get a lot of backstory.
Well, people care about him, but...
Yeah.
He is kind of integral.
Yeah. But we get a backstory on the Holy Grail War and Angra Mainyu, which, as far as I know, they didn't dive that deep into the lore in the visual novel for Avenger. I actually talked with a couple of my friends who have recently read the visual novel, and they confirmed that was not as fleshed out in Heaven's Feel, but it was rather fleshed out in Hollow Ataraxia, which is the sequel. Which I really hope we get an adaptation of that sometime soon.
That would be neat.
But, so yeah, they did kind of like what they did with the Unlimited Bladeworks series, and they fleshed out some bits of lore that, while it may not be entirely accurate to the visual novel or wasn't in the VN, it helped for world building and context.
Yeah.
And it worked out better for the whole, just giving us better context and...
Definitely makes me want to go back and finish Heaven's Feel, like the third route.
Yes. I did have a couple questions, but some of them are just nitpicks, and a lot of them you will actually understand if you read the source, and some things I think could have been displayed a little bit better. Like, the biggest thing I was looking forward to, besides the awesome fist fight at the end, was the 9 Lives Bladeworks.
Yeah.
Which, you know, there's this version of Fate Stay Night called the Realta Nua version, I hope I pronounced that right, for the PS Vita.
Something like that.
And in that, it gives you animated OPs for each route. And we get to see Shiro do the 9 Lives Bladeworks in that, without seeing the outcome. But in the movie, it was all just, boom, one fell swoop and it's done. And I'm like, yes, that is technically accurate to the visual novel, but it's not as visually impressive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A couple other things like that I could nitpick. One that I kind of wish they showed us more is they said, we want you to trace the jeweled sword Zelrect. But...
yeah, they could have gone into...
It's like, okay, first of all, how did they go back in time like that? I get it was like an astral projection thing, which they didn't really explain how that worked.
No.
That's just there. And I get that if he sees it, he can copy it, but we don't even see him actually produce it. It's just written has it the next scene. Okay, sure, why not? I get that it's not the important thing in the grand scheme, but a lot of my nitpicks with the movie are really things that were probably just cut down for brevity's sake, because it's a movie, not a show. If this had been a full show, we could have gotten a lot more fleshing out of certain events, but then we would also be saddled with a lot of been there, done that we got in the Unlimited Bladeworks show.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So my favorite part, besides the Saber-Alter versus Rider fight and the Shiro versus Kirei fight, Kirei freaking exercising Zoken Mato. It's like I told him after we left the theater, just the way Kirei recites the verses and does the prayer, the vocal patterns he was using, like his rhythm and his conviction, The entire time I was thinking in the back of my head, in brightest day and blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. It sounds like he's doing the freaking Green Lantern oath. And some of the lines even cross over, like, with each other. I know it's not what they were going for, but it gave me the same vibe, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I still can't believe, though, that Zoken survived that.
What I have trouble believing more is that he survived after Sakura found his last worm and crushed it. He was still alive after that.
Yeah.
It's like, just die!
Just die!
Well, at least they literally killed him with fire at the end. Or
Yeah.
lava, actually. Fell into the lava. Like his
Magma.
last...
Magma.
Okay,
There's
magma,
a distinction.
Yes, there is, indeed.
We've had this argument before.
Fell into the magma. And, like, literally, last worm dies. I actually expected Shiro using Rule Breaker on Sakura. I expected that to be more of a fight and less of her just kind of surrendering, you know?
Yeah.
Which
I was going to say that was probably my favorite part, was just Rule Breaker coming back out. I was shocked.
I knew it was coming because I did have some spoilers for certain events that happened, but not the particulars of how it happened. But they do drop a heavy hint that it's going to happen when Ilya mentions Angramanyu is a servant. And Shiro's like, Master and Servant, huh? And then, you know, there's like a brief pause for a second that you're like, that's important, say that for later. And then, of course, if you watch the trailer, we see Shiro has Rule Breaker for like 2 seconds in it.
I didn't watch the trailer.
Yeah.
I tried to go in as blind as possible.
Which, that's a good way to approach just about anything nowadays, because trailers often give away too much.
Yeah, they often blow the entire film load.
Like, so many trailers, not just for anime stuff, but for other things, where it's basically you watch the trailer, you watch the movie, like, what was it, Terminator? Like, the most recent Terminator film? Like, Mr. Link, whatever that was. That movie, I feel like I've watched the whole movie now. You just gave away what the premise is. I don't think I'm gonna miss anything if I miss out. I gotta say, I was impressed with Ryder, very much so, because up until this route, Ryder has been stuck with Shinji the entire time.
Yeah.
And
Been severely limited because of that.
Even though Shiro tanked the first half of Excalibur Morgan with the Ro Ias, Ryder still busted through that on her Pegasus, which, if you go back to the first route, normal Saber vaporized her when she tried the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, we know Saber Alter is stronger than Saber, and Ryder with Sakura's power, or Sakura's contract at the very least, is way stronger than Sakura being loaned out to Shinji. Or not Sakura, Ryder being loaned out to Shinji.
Yeah, way stronger.
Like, it's unreal. The comparison is night and day. I was like, my hat off to you. That's pretty impressive. I wish we got to see more of that.
Mm-hmm. I was severely concerned that we were not going to get to see Bellerophon, because the whole fight was going down, and she didn't use it until the very end. But, oh my god, when I saw the circle pop up, I was hyped.
It's like, yep, here it comes. And, you know, she has mentioned a few times that she prefers to be at a high altitude when she uses it because it's a literal flying horse.
Mm-hmm.
But the making it just like a charge attack to basically steamroll anything in front of you, that's a really good way to use it. And then Shiro comes in with the Azov Dagger for the finish, which, you know, cheap shot, but it worked. And when you're up against a foe that strong, that's basically what you have to do. Yeah, that's one thing that I've been thinking about this version of Shiro compared to the other two routes. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time, because if we go by just part 1 and 2 of the movie, this version of Shiro sucks in terms of power. Like...
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, by scaling at this point in the story, we're 2/3 in at this point, he's done a projection all of once.
Yeah.
Used reinforcement a few times, but he's extremely underpowered going into part 3. In Fate and Unlimited Blade Works, he's already gotten some major power boosts because of his bond with Saber. He got Avalon, and he could project Caliburn, which killed Hercules like 7 times over in a single strike.
Yeah.
And then, by this point in Unlimited Blade Works, he's squared up against Archer and is able to project swords at will now. And so, just going into part 3, he's extremely underpowered. So I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm like, how is he going to overcome this? And it came down to a do or die situation where you get all of this power, but it is going to kill you.
Yeah.
No choice here. So it was a good back and forth of him. Like that's I think that's what the whole imagery with a gun was.
Mm.
Showed him loading a clip and then sliding it in. They didn't say what that was, but it was meant to be, he's got this many shots and then he's out.
Yeah.
And he only had like a limited number of projections, and then he dies after it's over.
Yeah.
Which, that's actually what happens in one ending of the visual novel version. He traces Excalibur to destroy the Grail, and Elia doesn't save him. That is one thing that they could have touched on just a little bit more in this movie version. They used the best ending to where Elia invokes the third magic Heaven's Feel to materialize his soul, and then they shove it into a doll, and he comes back.
Yeah, they didn't really explain that.
They do mention...
You really had to pay attention.
Yeah, they mention Heaven's Feel is third magic, crystallization of the soul. And then she says, you're about to witness a miracle, true magic. But, and like, they show, yeah, here's like this mannequin-looking thing, and then there's this glowy thing in a cage. And just, poof, Shiro's back now, all of a sudden. Which they just completely glossed over that process, because...
Yeah, I don't feel like they did it poorly.
But if we were to say...
it still could have been done better.
If we were to say any part of this was rushed, that was what was rushed.
Yeah.
Because at the way it goes down, the flow of this is... Elia seals off the Holy Grail. Shiro's body just completely shatters from overusing Archer's power because he's not strong enough. They mention that his body is nowhere to be found. He's completely disappeared. They're back at school, like, I don't know, a couple weeks, a month later or so.
Yeah,
and
pretty sure it said like a year.
I didn't see a timestamp on there. I'll have to go back and watch again. But Taiga mentioned, I wonder when he's coming back. And then just...
There he is.
Just poof, there he is like 2 scenes later. And Taiga is not like, hey, where you been? You know, no big happy reunion moment, just going on with their daily lives. Okay, sure, why not? On the whole, the movie was awesome. I think they could have just done like a little better in 1 or 2 tiny parts. But aside from that, it was fantastic, and I'm really ready for it to come out on home media because I want to get full review videos out of these.
Yeah.
So,
I'm also really hyped because I actually really enjoy the dubs.
yes.
So I'm really hyped for when the dub comes out for this. I hope it comes out in theaters as well.
Yes.
I mean, it's not just because I'm a Christina V fanboy, but
Hey, no
whatever.
shame. No shame. I gotta say, I greatly underestimated Kirei.
Yeah.
Like, not just him throwing hands with Shiro until his dying breath, but him squaring up against Cursed Arm Hassan, who took down Lancer. Because, like, going by the first 2 routes, even if we get the extended anime version, Kirei really didn't do too much in terms of combat. And now he's over here, like...
throwing down with a serpent.
Like he's in his prime back 10 years ago during Fate Zero. Like, honestly, I want to see him and, what's his name, Kuzuki? Caster's Master?
Mm-hmm.
I want to see them throw hands.
That would be interesting.
That would be really awesome to watch. The funny part was when he literally throws Shiro into the 3rd story window.
Yeah.
And I'm like...
Okay.
Just, you're an old man, just... I imagine he just, like, did that thing where he grabs him by the back of the collar, grabs him by the back of his pants, heave! Just tosses him up. And then Shiro tries to do superhero landings like, you didn't use Magecraft to reinforce your legs? You're an idiot. But it is. Then, of course, the iconic fight, Shiro versus Kotomine at the end. And, you know, I told you this before. I don't think I've said this on camera. When it comes, like, that fight reminded me of the ending of the movie Char's Counterattack, like the Gundam movie.
Mm-hmm. Because it always goes back to Gundam with you.
To spare you all the details, basically, it all comes down to fists. No matter how advanced things get with either magic or technology or ideology, in the end, it still comes down to the most basic, brutal, and primitive form of violence. Fisticuffs. Literally just beating each other senseless. That's what they did in that movie, that's what they did in this movie, and it works because, you know, maybe I'm digging too deep into it, but to me it serves as just a little bit of subtle commentary on the nature of humanity itself. If you look at it from a narrative standpoint.
Probably going a little too deep into it.
But if you look at it from a narrative standpoint, Shiro couldn't use any of his magic because he's like, I got 1 shot left, but I gotta destroy the Grail, so I can't waste it on him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he didn't just Excalibur both of them. But, you know, I like to think it's a bit more artsy than that.
Yeah.
That's just me, though. I like to overanalyze everything.
Well, anything else?
Basically, all we've gushed about so far has just been the boss fights, which that's where most of the writing has been.
That's where most of it's at.
Because everything else is just kind of lore dump, which we don't really need to unpack all of it
we
here.
can cover that in the official reviews.
Yeah, but
This is just kind of a gush over the movie review.
yeah, just gush over the hype, and because COVID's been happening and everything's
There's
been
not
on
been a lot
lockdown,
to be hyped about.
and I'm going through bad convention withdrawals. I went from having like 3-4 conventions a year to having one this year, and the rest of them got canceled for the rest of the year, and the ones at the beginning of next year, so I needed this.
Yeah.
So watching the double feature in theaters and then coming back and watching part 3, I'm like, it's not enough, but it'll give me my fix until
It'll wake.
yeah, just get my nerd fix with that. So yeah, I think that's about all we need to unpack here. We did dump a lot of spoilers, but it is more so we want to hype you up to go see it yourself
Yeah,
because
please do.
it's still got a
Oh
couple
my
days
gosh.
left in theaters, and if nothing else, watch it on Blu Ray when it comes out. We do not condone piracy, so don't go cheat and find it online in poor quality. Wait till the actual official release comes out. So, I think that's about it, though.
Yep.
Yeah. So, this has been Blade Cross EXE.
Wait.
What?
Wasn't there another fake movie you were supposed to review?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, it's been Ryoji 42.
Power Flash of Blaze Productions with another vlog about stuff we watch. So, Castlevania Season 4 when it comes out?
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright, peace out.
Peace.